Hi there, are you curious about growing your own shiitake mushrooms on logs at home? Are you wondering if it is a worthwhile pursuit? Well, great news. I found it to be very rewarding. I've been doing this for about 7 years. It's a pretty forgiving process, pretty fun. There are some things you'll need to know to get started. But if we just look at the numbers, a package of shiitakes at the store is going to be $5 or $6 for 8 or 10 mushrooms. That's roughly the amount you'll spend on the mycelium to inoculate one log, which could produce 50 to 100 mushrooms over the course of its maybe 7-year life. So it definitely makes financial sense. I'm going to show you how to inoculate your logs and walk you through the whole process. So let's do it. I'm going to show you how. Let's go. All right, the first thing you're gonna need is a log. And not just any log, you're gonna need a special kind of log. These are white oak. Oak is preferred. That's the kind of wood that shiitake mushrooms are traditionally cultivated on. There's some other woods that will work well too, hard maple, hornbeam. There's a whole chart of a bunch of different woods that will work, some just better than others. I'll put a link to that in the description box. Yeah, so you want nice, healthy, living, green, fresh cut wood. Preferably wood that's cut in the dormant season when the leaves are off. I've used just wood and trees that have fallen over in storms from different times of year, and they've still worked just fine. But you probably want to, if you can avoid it, not use wood that was cut in the spring when the sap is running. The shiitake is going to be decomposing and eating the sapwood, the white part, so you want a lot of nice healthy sapwood. Clean logs with intact bark, no loose bark, no wounds, no dead spots, no bug holes, no pre-existing fungus. 4 to 6 inches in diameter by 36 to 40 inches long is a preferred size. That's a good size to work with. You definitely probably don't want to go any smaller than that. You could go bigger than that. You'll just need more mycelium. It'll be a little more cumbersome to work with. Might take a little longer to get started, but they might last a little longer. So you could do that if you wanted to. If you can't locate your own logs, you might be able to call a local tree service company or a firewood dealer and pay a little bit for some logs, or maybe even get them for free. But the number one thing with the shiitake logs, you don't ever want them to dry out. That could kill the fungus. Since these are fresh cut, they're actually have too much moisture right now. They're not quite dead enough for the mycelium to take hold, so I'm going to let these dry out for a week or two. You don't really want to let them dry out too much. A month or 2 months would be too much. They'd be too dry and they would not make good shiitake logs. So yeah, there's the first thing you need, a log. All right, the second thing you'll need is a nice shady area. The north side of a house or a shed or deep in the woods would be a great location. You just want to keep your logs as moist as possible, have little sun exposure as possible. 0 sun exposure would be the best. You also want to keep them off the ground. I use cinder blocks just because that's what I had, but you could also use other logs or metal rails or something like that. You just don't want them to rot into the ground and be exposed to pathogens from the soil. But yeah, a nice shady spot. That's the second thing you'll need. The next thing you're gonna need is your mycelial plug spawn. These little 1 inch by 1/4 inch dowels. So that's what we're gonna be hammering into our logs. You order these online. The two biggest companies are North Spore and Field and Forest Products. North Spore is on Amazon. There's some other ones on Amazon. Field and Forest Products is the only one I could find where you could pick your own strain of shiitakes. They had multiple strains to choose from, but you had to order at least 250 plug spawn, which is enough for 5 logs. That was the minimum. Some of the other companies had the minimum of 100, which is enough for 2 logs. There's 3 general types of strains you can purchase: cold weather, warm weather, and wide ranging. Wide ranging is probably going to be the best for the beginners, the most resilient, the most hardy. But if you live in a colder climate, a cold weather strain would do better. If you live in a warmer climate, a warm weather strain would do better. Or if you wanted to spread out your harvest throughout the year and have harvest at different times, you could get some different ones. So here's my delivery from North Spore. Here's my packet of 100 plug spawn. And I ordered some wax. We can talk about that later. They do have a nice little booklet here with the instructions and the charts and the graphs and the how-to. There's the chart of all the woods and some instructional stuff, so that's pretty helpful. It's all on their website anyway. It was about $27 for that North Spore delivery. Okay, here's my Field and Forest products. 250 plug spawn there. And that was $36 for 250. And there was on North Spore, there was like a 10% discount code on the website. So you might be able to find some discount codes for these as well. But you do want to make sure you open these immediately, get them out of their packaging. Don't let them sit in the sun on your porch or in your mailbox. You need to get them out of their packaging and put them in the refrigerator until you're ready to inoculate your logs. All right, so there's that thing you'll need. Let's move on to the next thing. You're gonna need a few tools. The next thing you'll need is some tools, is normal household tools for the most part. First, you're gonna need a drill to make your holes in your logs for your plug spawn. 5/16 inch drill bit. If you have a stop collar, that's this little metal ring that you tighten on your bit with an Allen wrench. That will be very useful, but if you don't, you can just make a flag out of tape. That will tell you where to stop. It won't physically stop the drill bit, but you can manage with that fairly easily. So yeah, the plug spawn are 1 inch by 1/4 inch. So you need a 5/16 drill bit that's just a little wider, and you want to set your depth to about 1 1/8 inches or a little longer than the actual plug spawn. The next thing you'll need is a hammer. Any hammer will do, work just fine. I do prefer the ball peen hammer. I can seat the plug spawn with the final blow with the round end and make a nice little divot in the log for the wax to sit in. Also recommend safety glasses if you're going to be drilling into wood. That's always a good idea. But that's all the tools you need. Now let's move on to the next thing you'll need: some wax. The last thing we need is wax. You need a food grade wax, not just any wax. You don't want to use candle wax or anything with colors or scents in it. I believe the Gulf wax in your canning department of your local grocery store would work fine. That's a food grade wax that people put in their chocolates, and I think that's what makes apples shiny. That's kind of what this looks like, but that is a petroleum product, so you may not want to use that if you have access to other food grade wax. I'm not sure. I couldn't find a whole lot of information either way on that, but that does look like what this is. When I first started making these logs, I bought a big block of beeswax from a local honey farm, but it was super expensive. It was like $25 for a block of beeswax versus $3 for whatever this is. It'll probably do at least a couple logs. You can also save your cheese wax from your fancy cheeses. That's food grade wax. You can melt that down and use that as well. You definitely don't want to just put a pot of wax on your stove. That's a fire hazard. You want to use a double boiler or something made to melt wax, or you could even use a crock pot on low with a crock pot liner as well. But yeah, that's the last thing you need: some wax, and you'll need a dauber or a little brush to apply the wax on the inoculation sites. But yeah, now that's everything we need. Now we're ready to start inoculating our logs. So let's do it. Let's drill the holes in this log. I'm just going to make a row of holes every 4 inches. Then we're going to move up the log 2 inches and do another row of alternating holes kind of in the middle of the first holes, creating a 4-inch diamond pattern over the surface of the log. So here we go. Glasses on. All right, not too bad, just a few minutes, and we've got our log ready to inoculate. I like to do just kind of one row at a time, setting them up and knocking them down. All right, not too bad. It was about 5 or 6 minutes, and now we're ready for the wax. Time for the wax. You don't necessarily have to do the ends, but I'm gonna do them. It just usually falls off after a few years, but I think it's gonna help it get a better start. So I just wanna cover all the inoculation sites. You also want to cover any branch cuts or saw marks or anything else that will expose the log to pathogens or have it dry out. All right, here's some chainsaw marks. Cover those. A couple little branchy spots, we're gonna cover those. All right, that one's done. We have completed our shiitake log. It's the time for celebration. Now we just have to wait about a year. Okay, maintaining your logs, there's just a few things you need to know. As stated before, the most important thing when growing mushrooms on logs is to keep the logs moist. They need to maintain a 25% moisture content at a minimum and about 1 inch of rain a week. I don't keep up to that standard nearly, but I do water these 2 to 4 times a year, a couple times in the summer and also maybe in the fall if it's dry, especially when they're in this crib stack formation. They are more vulnerable to drying out in the wind. The other thing you're going to have to do is change your stacking formation 2 times a year. In the summer, you're going to have them in a nice tight low stack so they don't dry out, and then before they fruit in the fall, you're going to put them in this crib stack formation so they have room to fruit and you have room to get in there and harvest your mushrooms. You can force fruit your logs once they have matured. Once these have matured in a year, you can put them in a cold water bath for 24 hours and that will stimulate them to fruit. You could do this every 8 to 10 weeks and have mushrooms on demand if you want. Shut up, crows. Come on. All right. So yeah, you can force fruit them, have mushrooms on demand if you want. It's just gonna burn your logs up faster. They won't last quite as long. As far as harvesting your mushrooms goes, a pruner or a knife is definitely preferred. You get a nice clean cut that way. If you try to pull them off by hand, you have a potential to damage the bark and damage the logs by ripping off the bark. So definitely best to use a pruner or a knife, and probably better to harvest them sooner than later. If you let them go too long, when the edge gets fully unrolled, they'll get beetle damage and slug and bird damage and get soggy and kind of gross. So best to pick them when they have nice white gills and a rolled edge. But that's all you need to know. I hope you found that instructive and informative, and maybe even inspiring you to grow your own mushrooms in your own backyard. I'm Michael File. I'll see you next time on Mushroom Journeys.